Vampire 5th Edition game. In the last session, our heroes, following a tip from their ally Amanda Knight, discovered that Finn the Bruiser and her mob had apparently kidnapped someone and were sort of holding them in a warehouse by the river, torturing them for information. Further investigation led them to find out that the person was a young woman by the name of Maya Kamal, who is a police person of high rank and possibly a member of Operation Antigen. We're not sure. They went and rescued her. Seth fed her a bit of blood so she could heal her wounds. They dropped her off at a hospital, burnt the warehouse down, and a few other sundry bits and pieces happened. So we're going to pick up today with, obviously, we've got Ambrose staying at hotels. Your character Adrian is sort of, now you've all moved out of the secondary haven that Zafir had lent you. You've gone back to sleeping at hotels. Seth, you've moved back into your sort of murder basement, as we'll lovingly call it, with like the concrete and the sort of bivvy bag full of all your like vampire supplies, etc. So we're going to start off with obviously a rouse roll for the two of you, just to sort of see how you're doing in terms of that hunger. So if I can get you both to make me one of those. Okay. Okay, so you're both fine. Okay, so we're picking up the a couple of days after the previous session. So it's now Thursday, the 2nd of April. Now, Adrian, you know this was the evening when the Ministry were to be holding their soiree at the Enigma Club. They said they wanted to invite some kindred over, just in a more of a sort of social environment, you know, rather than it being like a big sort of weighty decision to be made, as with the previous meeting about the reformed Kindred Society. And you were able to give them some sort of hints as to like who they might like to invite. So over the course of the couple of nights that have passed since last session, you will have both received on paper, in an envelope, wax seal, the whole works, green wax. You will have both received an invitation to attend. There's no, it doesn't mention specifically anything vampiric in it. It just says you're invited to a private function at the Enigma Club on Thursday, the 2nd of April. At the bottom is a mobile phone number, which those of you who've got Ministry phone numbers will recognise this is not one of them. And it literally says above the phone number, it says, if you have any special requirements, please call this number.
Would I like definitely think that was related to blood?
It doesn't specifically say that, but that's a reasonable assumption, because obviously we all know there are certain clans, certain vampires who have particular feeding requirements, so it's a reasonable assumption.
I kind of like think about whether I should even mention something, but I do like call up just to tell them.
Okay, so you call up and it goes straight through to a voicemail, and it just says, "Please leave your message after the tone." Beep.
Oh god. Okay. So yeah, I try to leave a message that's like clearly me saying that I want people of like well-maintained physique who are in good physical shape to be there, but I try to leave it in a way where it's not obvious I'm talking about like because I want to drink on their blood or something.
Okay, no, that's not a problem. So obviously you've received one of those as well, sir. Do you leave any message or?
No.
Okay. Okay, now you can see from the invitations that the soiree doesn't actually start until 10. So obviously you've got a bit of a time sort of beforehand. Obviously you guys have sort of woken up for the evening. You're getting yourself ready. Is there anything in particular you guys want to do before that? Assuming you're planning to go, obviously you don't have to.
Yeah, we're going. I'll check in with Seth. See if he wants to meet up beforehand.
Yeah, sure. And I'll suggest a location in the sort of commercial central.
How does what form does this interaction take? Also, we know Seth has problems with technology.
Yeah.
So how is Adrian contacting him?
I assumed that. Okay, either I'll probably call him, and have to like constantly go, what? Can you repeat?
There's a long call of
That's
Adrian
fine.
going,
You've
"What?
got a couple of
Can you
days
repeat?"
to
And
organise
they're
it.
outside.
But yeah, that's fine. You can have arranged that. You've got a couple of nights to like make these arrangements. So worst case scenario, to be honest, you could have just popped in and seen him and gone like, "Oh, do you want to meet up in a couple of nights before we go to the soiree?" So it's not a problem. Okay, so where have you guys arranged to meet up?
I would like to meet outside, like a affordable clothing store
Okay.
in the central, because Seth is going to buy a change of clothes specifically for the soirée.
Okay.
Okay. So, like an affordable clothing store.
Yeah,
Like
just literally like the cheapest stuff you can buy off the rack.
Seeing this, I'm like, as soon as we went, we've like met up. I'm like, you can set your sights a bit higher. Like, I guess I can pay for you.
Oh, this? I wasn't. Well, I guess if you have the, I'm not exactly rolling in cash. So
I have like some assets saved away from my prize fighting days.
He says.
it's just like, takes out a little fistful of like golden Amex cards. They're like, pick one, pick anyone, pick a card.
Or he has one of those wallets where they like fold out with all the cards in it.
Yeah. So I guess can we have like a little like montage of
Clothes shopping.
yeah.
That's fine. Yep. So you guys head to, as before, you head to the Vicarage Fields shopping centre. Obviously, there are clothes shops in there, so we have a little montage of you sort of going through the various shops. So, very very roughly speaking, how are you planning to be attired for when you go? Like, are you wearing like a suit or?
Yeah. The suit is what Seth figured he needs to get, because he's been doing that whole I'm undercover thing with the sort of very nondescript clothing, very cheap, that you couldn't tell the difference between. And he has a lot of that stuff, but he has almost none of the like, oh, I'm actually a human being. I'm trying to exist in a society with others, and I want to be nice. So
Okay.
yeah, the idea would be to get a sort of presentable, nice suit.
Yep, that's absolutely fine. With sort of Adrian like footing the bill, that's not a problem. Like, it's either anyway like a cheap sort of off the rack suit. How is Adrian like? How is he attired?
He's got an No, sorry. You know how like it's sort of like I guess like the scent of like a normal like suit and tie, but it seems more like sleek and modern, like hard, like black and white colors, like
Mhm.
Nice.
pretty much like what you would expect of like you know, like a vampire to wear it.
That's absolutely fine. We know that Adrian's not exactly subtle when it comes to like, I'm a vampire.
That
Okay.
it has a skull with fangs on the back.
That's it, yeah. There's like blood. He's got a couple of cufflinks shaped like blood drops, you know, that sort of thing.
Oh, wait, can I get those?
Yeah.
There's
Oh, yeah, of course you can.
the-
You've got the money.
The fucking
So is it-
crossed scepter and gladius
Hey, man,
of the venture.
I had a couple of cufflinks that were shaped like Daleks, man, so you can certainly fucking get some blood drops.
And that was a bit on the nose, considering you are a Dalek. You didn't hide very well.
All this is just a facade. But
Your skin suit.
that's it, exactly. Okay, so yeah, we have a little montage of you guys buying a suit. You've got like a sort of off the rack, sort of fairly standard suit. So you've got like you said, like a more sort of monochrome, sort of like sleeker, sort of sharper looking suit, Adrian. And then we jump back to like the present evening. Now, remind me, Seth, how does your character actually sleep in your haven? Like, where do you sleep in your sort of den of concrete murder?
I sleep in the reinforced metal box under my actual bed. So the sort of sunk in metal coffin that I filled for the benefit of the police with survival gear, I empty that stuff out, put it in the corner, and I sleep in the box.
Okay, no problems. So you wake up for the evening, obviously getting out of your coven. Obviously it's dark, you know, because you're not turning on the lights. And as you sort of lift yourself up, like, out of the sort of sunken metal coffin that you sleep in, you're aware that through the like slivers of moonlight sort of like peeking around the curtains, you can just about make out there is like a large shadow of something, like a heap or a pile of something sort of like lying in the middle of your floor.
Inside.
Yeah,
That is.
inside. Yeah.
Let me see. Is there a smell in here aside from, I guess, like the like? Well, I guess no, because they ripped out the floor and whatnot, so it would be fresh concrete. So
Yeah.
probably
However,
fine.
there is a smell. There is a faint smell of blood. There's also like a sort of singe, sort of burnt smell, a bit like burnt hair or something similar. And just below it, I mean, it's very faint, but your sort of like vampiric senses are picking it up. There's like a sort of chemical tang, almost like a sort of antiseptic sort of cleaning fluid style smell, just sort of underlying the whole thing.
Okay, so I'll just get up from there and I will go inspect. There, like I'll get like a crowbar, like
it's fine.
from the corner of my bed, and I'll go poke the thing.
Okay.
Crowbar.
As you move towards the shape, as you get closer, it resolves itself into the shape of a young woman with black hair. You recognise Maya Kamal, and she is wearing, you know, one of those sort of hospital gowns.
Yeah.
As you're sort of like moving closer, you can see that sort of some of like the skin on her like left side appears to be like sort of charred and slightly burnt, and like some of like you can see where like the ends of some bits of her hair have sort of like burnt off. That's obviously where the smell's coming from. You're getting the faint waft of like the hospital antiseptic from the gown, and you can also see there's like a few sort of scratches and stuff, which is where the slight smell of blood's coming from.
Is there a pulse?
You check, there is a pulse, but it's faint.
Okay, I guess we're doing this again. Away with the crowbar, bite my wrist. I'll give her another go of my dark blood.
Okay, no problem. So for the second time, you give some of your blood to Miss Kamal.
Yep.
And after a few moments, as the blood obviously sort of instinctively starts sort of doing its thing, you see like the sort of livid like burn marks become slightly like fainter. Some of the smaller cuts and abrasions sort of slowly fade away from her face, her arms, her legs, etc. So like I say, she's only just like wearing like just one of these hospital gowns, and you can see there's like some scorch marks and stuff on that. And she slowly starts sort of like, still slightly dazed, but she slowly starts to regain consciousness. And as she does, she looks up and she obviously sees you, sort of like with a bit of the moonlight sort of dramatically silhouetting your face.
While she is recovering, because I know that she will,
Yeah.
because of the power of the blood. How's my door? It occurs to Seth once he's assured that she's going to recover now. How's the door?
Your door seems fine, however, it's open by like about an inch.
Yeah, close that.
Yeah, not a problem. You close the door. As you look at it, you can see that someone with a degree of skill has obviously like jimmied the door open, and obviously being used to like investigating and sort of looking at the marks she's made and whatever, you suspect that she's sort of like jimmied the door open with the last of her strength, took a few like steps inside, the door's obviously swung back nearly shut, and then she's just collapsed on the floor.
Also, would it be feasible to, because it's almost entirely dark, get the shadow cloak and sort of do that thing where like she's recovering her senses and whatnot, and then there's this like the dark man in the sort of corner of my murder basement.
That's absolutely fine. I'm not going to make a roll for that because you've got plenty of time to do that. Because you know how long it's roughly going to take her to come round. As she slowly wakes up, you can see her looking around. So it's still a little bit dazed, but like recovering her wits quickly. She's looking around. Her eyes like move over you, so she's obviously not like spotted you because like you're a patch of shadow in a corner in a dark room. No chance. So her eyes move across you, and you hear her go, "Seth." And she's like looking around the dark room. Obviously hasn't spotted you.
I'm gonna wait for another thing that she does before I do anything. So if she so you said she hasn't spotted me.
No.
Okay.
She's
Yeah,
just
so
sort of
I'll
like
wait.
calling out.
Yeah, I'll wait for further actions on her part.
Okay, so she like pushes herself sort of a bit stiffly, but into like a seated position. She like pulls the gown sort of around her a bit, 'cause obviously it's one of those open back like hospital gowns. So like pulls it around herself a bit, and she looks around again. She goes, "Is there anybody there? Hello?"
You can't be here, Maya.
At which
I
point,
said
like,
from the darkness.
yeah, she looks vaguely in your direction. Obviously, she can hear the voice, but she still doesn't know exactly where you are. She's okay. Oh, yeah, I thought it was you. When I saw you last, I didn't believe it at first, but then with everything that happened at the hospital, I didn't know where else to go.
What happened at the hospital?
A couple of agents turned up to collect me, and I was in and out of consciousness, but I woke up to hear them having a discussion with the doctor who'd been looking after me about some irregularities in my blood work, and pretty soon, I mean, I didn't know what to do, and I was still quite weak. And pretty soon afterwards, they showing their credentials, they bundled me into a car. Like I said, I was still passing in and out of consciousness, but I remember sort of seeing street lights go by the car windows. They'd obviously put me in the back of the car, and I could hear them talking, but I couldn't really make out what they were saying. I think I must have been given some sedatives or something at the hospital, and but I think the car must have been attacked, because next thing I remember was this loud explosion, and the sound of screeching tyres and people shouting and screaming, and the next thing I knew, I woke up and I was lying in a street, wreckage of the car all about. Bits of me was singed. I was in a great deal of pain, and I thought, well, obviously I can't go back to the hospital because of what's happened, and I didn't know who we'd been attacked by. I didn't know what was going on. I'm sorry, I didn't want to put you in a difficult position, but I couldn't think of anywhere else to go. I mean, if I'm being attacked while I'm being taken from the hospital, I mean, who knows if people are watching my house?
They are.
Again, I'm sorry, I just didn't know where else to go.
They are. So, well, I guess you figured out that it wasn't Lee Smith that lived here.
Well, yes, I worked that out fairly early on, but I didn't want to cause you any undue problems, given that there were other people about. So I played along with it, and honestly, I would have been quite happy to maintain that fiction. You got your property back. I knew that would happen. I was just about to file the paperwork when I was taken first, so I knew you'd got this place back. And honestly, like I said, I didn't want to place you at any inconvenience. If I could have thought of anywhere else to go, I would have done. But knowing there was no direct connection between this place and myself, apart from in terms of that closed investigation, I thought, this, odd as it sounds, this may be the safest place for me to go.
Partially true, I guess. Yes. Did those people in the car with you died? Did you see bodies?
No, when I recovered consciousness, there were no bodies about at all.
Do you remember their names when they showed you their credentials?
They didn't show me the credentials. They showed it to the hospital staff to get custody of me. I know there were 4 of them. The 2 who came in to speak to the doctor, and then like I say, I think I was sedated, but there were another 2 in the back of the car with me. But by the time I recovered enough to get away from the scene, I didn't see any of them about.
Okay. This complicates a lot. I guess if you figured out my ruse with Mr. Lee Smith, then trouble was bound to happen anyway. But this complicates a lot, Mayak, because you and everyone else needs to think that I actually died when they made it look like I did.
Of course, and again, she's still sort of like looking around because she doesn't know exactly where you are. She's like, yes, of course, sir. In our line of work, I understand the need for secrecy, and as I say, if I could have thought of anywhere else to go that would have been safe, I would have gone there.
I know that's. I guess you're looking at a similar situation to what I did, except it's not because your work calls for it. It's because you're involved in something now that you didn't necessarily ask for. However, I will
At which point
inquire.
she cuts in, sort of interrupting you, and says, "Well, guess I couldn't very well report back in. I mean, you know the policy for people whose blood has been tainted within the organisation."
So, I found something in your place after it was ransacked by the people who keep an eye on your place. And John, there was a letter from someone who used the sign with the crown.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I found this crown signed letter in your place where they
Yes.
had failed to look. Why did you leave that behind?
She says, to be honest, I tried to hide it, but I didn't want to carry anything incriminating on me. I perhaps naively, I thought that anyone who was not clued in would not understand the meaning of it anyway. After all, I really don't know the person who sent it. All I know is that there's someone inside the organisation.
Thing is, my let's call it the organization. They also need to think that I died. Things have gotten exponentially more complex in my work in recent times. It's not a mischaracterization to say that I am kind of freelance now, and I really, really need the organization not to know that I'm here.
And I sympathise. I really do. If I still thought it was possible, I would quite happily report back in, and obviously make no mention of you. But as I say, they've already got the medical records that show the irregularities in my blood.
Yeah. So about that, why were you by the river?
I wasn't by the river. Well, until I was taken, obviously.
Yes. Why that? Do you know?
I honestly don't know. I was bundled into the back of a van, and I was interrogated fairly inexpertly about what I knew about the organisation. Now, as you know, the organisation is deliberately, the way it is organised is deliberately so that if an agent is captured, there's minimal information that they can give that will be of any use. All agents are rotated. We don't have direct dealings with each other apart from specific missions. We operate in small cells, so I couldn't really give them any useful information, even if I'd wanted to. And after a while, it just seemed as though they were just torturing me for the fun of it, almost.
Yeah,
Then without saying a word to me, they just packed up and left me there.
Yeah. So you can't go back to the crown.
But well, I
Can't.
don't know who the crown is, but
Yeah. Well, the
I can't go back to the organisation.
yes, that. So you can't do that. You can't go back to work because they will know
Of course.
at work.
I mean, I think I don't know. I mean, I've carefully sort of reached out with some of my resources, very carefully, but all I've been able to find is that technically I'm still a missing person. Since I was never conclusively identified when I was dropped off at the hospital, at least officially.
I wish none of this was on you. For
Well,
you
so
to-
do I.
I guess we don't get to pick what happens. But I'm trying to think of a way to give you that option. So there is a chance.
Before we talk anymore,
Mm.
sorry, I'm sure this isn't the top of your list, but do you have anything to sit on? My ass is freezing on this concrete floor.
John, I'm gonna blush
Yeah, that's
before
fine.
I get out of the shadows. Oh, yeah, that makes me hungry. So I step out of the shadows
What's your
with
hunger rating now?
2.
That's fine.
Yeah. I step out of the shadows with 2 of my incredibly classy plastic chairs. So I'll hand her one.
She takes one and then she tries to stay facing onto you, so obviously like you can't see like the big split down the back
Yep.
of the,
And
and then she sort of tucks it
I'll-
behind herself and
I'll get her. It's probably going to be like a tarp, or a tent fabric piece.
Yeah.
It's like you can put that on the plastic. Maybe it's better to sit on that.
yeah, you pass her this top and she sort of gets
Yeah.
up, drapes it over the chair and then sits back
Yeah.
down.
I'll get you some clothes. I have some extras around. But before all that, there's a chance here. I think because they don't know this place, and that's probably the only reason we have a chance here. It's fucking shit. Because you didn't choose to do all of this. I did when they made me disappear.
I mean,
That's
the
part
only
of
thing
the
I've
deal.
got at the minute is obviously I was aware that there's always a possibility that things with the organisation might not go according to plan. So I've got some off the books assets and a few contacts outside the organisation that I've got squirreled away just in case like anything happened and I needed to make a run for it. But
Yeah, so that's what we're going to do here because we have the window open, and I would rather. I'm not. You choose, right? That's the important part here. So you pick what happens next. I want to highlight that one of your extremely relevant options here is because you're here in secret and your secret stays with me. I'm not going to go back to the organization, so that's fine. You're cut off right now. You're hidden. They don't know where you are. You're off the board. If we go tonight, I can get you out of the city. You have your assets. You call on those. If you want to leave the country, that's fine. But the important part is you have the window now to start over somewhere else. And again, it is shit. I realize that. When I did this, I didn't have to go anywhere because they zeroed me, and I'm still here. It's just that I get to keep a lot of things, not officially though, but I still got to be here. You can't be here anymore. You're on everyone's list right now, and that's just not a living plan. Not in this game.
She says, "Look, if you say you think that's for the best, then
Yeah.
I'll do it. But there's these people out there who just snatched me and tortured me, and for all I know, did this to me, and have caused this whole mess. And look, you and me go a ways back. You know me. I can't just let that stand." Knowing that those people out there could easily do the same to anybody else.
I've got a beat on them. Don't you worry about that. I will look after them.
He says, plus
I
all of... I know I can't see them at the minute, but all of my family are in
Yeah,
in
that's
London. I
that's
can't.
the
I
shit
can't.
part. That's the only part that I miss as well, which is why this is suboptimal, to say the least, that we're here now, you and me, talking about this.
She says, "Look, I know we're not sort of close, direct family,
No, but
Seth,
I sure
but
as fucking am glad to see you now, because the people I spend my time with, like I would rather be back in Delhi and doing the fucking song and dance for this or that cousin's wedding for a week. Like that's great, compared to what I'm dealing with now. Like thinking back to that, it just makes me want to fucking fuck off and buy a plane ticket right now. But
she says, well, look, you know that I'm not just going to walk away from this. That's never been my style, especially not when I've got so many family hereabouts. So if there's anything I can do to help you deal with these people, I will. But until they've been taken to task for what they did to me, God only knows how many other people. I can't just walk away from it. I've never been that person.
I know all of this, and I guess I was just hoping that you were gonna have a weak moment and you were actually gonna go away to, I don't know, Manchester, and disappear. If you think you can go to ground in London, I guess that's an option. I would rather you go away.
She says, and plus, to be honest, I can't just leave you to sort all of this out yourself. I can't just abandon you to like deal with all this yourself.
No, it's I guess I kind of set myself up here, so you wouldn't be exactly abandoning me. A part of this is my own making.
He says, but I understand that, but after all that length of time believing you were dead, and now sort of like seeing you sat here again, I can't just walk away. It's not in my nature.
Okay. Right. So can you find a place?
Well, like I said, I've got some off the books contacts. I'm sure if I reach out to some of them, obviously I'll change my appearance, all the usual, the song and dance.
Yeah.
But I'm sure I can find myself a place, fake ID, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
That
Might
shouldn't
I
be a
suggest picking something, I guess, more Anglo-Saxon? I know for a fact that the algorithm there is not going to be kind to a Miss Kamal just on like any given day.
problem. At which point she sort of gestures at her like light brown skin and says,
Yeah.
I'm not really sure how well that's going to fly, to be honest.
Yeah, I know, but just
I don't think Miss Smith's going to quite wash.
yeah, I guess it's just that there's like they've got so I know that we have a very different position right now, but we had a different position before as well. They inducted me. I've seen beyond the curtain, and they have so many angles, including just your name. You buy, I don't know, a beer from a convenience store at night, and they will know where you are. Just because their fucking algorithms drag for names, and they profile. So that's fun for everyone who has nothing to do with all this shit we're involved in. But I was just thinking, no, it's yeah. No, it's just I'm trying to grasp at straws here. for what I can do, because that's not a lot at the minute, because I went freelance, so to speak. So okay, so let me get to those clothes before I ramble more and make myself more of an asshole. So I'll dig into like my survival kit and dig out some jumpers and hiking trousers and a pair of boots, that kind of thing.
Yeah, no problem.
Get her all set up, looking like she was going on a trip to the wilds of Scotland.
Yeah, well, that's absolutely fine.
Okay. I guess when you get a burner phone, stop by and drop the number, like slide it under my roof, I guess, because I need to get a new one as well to contact you. So okay. Okay, sorry about all this.
It's not your fault.
I put you in the hospital. That's what started this shit.
At which point she sort of, in a way that like you suppose is trying to be comforting, she sort of like puts a hand on your arm and says, "Look, this whole thing started before you came into the picture, when those people grabbed me and took me to that place by the river. Yeah. So whatever's happened since then, they started it. You and me," and she like squeezes your arm. "You and me, we've just been trying to deal with the fallout of all of that since it happened. They're the ones to blame for this, not you."
Right. Okay. Well, best of luck, I guess. It's fucking awful to set you off looking for your place right now. But
don't worry, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Is there any way, if I need to, is there any way for me to contact you without causing you any more problems?
I need to get a new phone, so you get yours, because I think you'll get yours faster than I will. Okay. So you get yours, slide the number under my door, I'll send you a message after.
Okay. At which point she stands again, she sort of squeezes your shoulder and she says, "Right, I suppose I best get on that. Thanks."
You need a shooting implement before you go?
No, that's fine. Like I said, I've got some some off the books assets squirreled away. I'll go and collect them.
Knife?
Yeah, that might be a good idea.
Okay, yeah. So I'll go and get like a survival knife. Just hand it to her with the scabbard and everything.
Yeah, you hand her that and she sort of like tucks it in about, so like the blade's down the side of her leg. Says, "Well, hopefully I'll speak to you soon. Thanks again, Seth. I appreciate it."
Yeah, no, stay off the lights.
Yeah,
and the cameras.
She nods, gets up and leaves.
Yeah.
At which point we smash cut to Adrian Resnick sat in his latest plush hotel room, sat there looking through a book titled Blood Moon, a thrilling horror crime detective drama written by Sean Waters. And to give you a very sort of rough idea of it, you've sort of skim read through it. It's like a thick old, like a hardback book, so you've not had time to read all of it. But it basically tells the story of a young woman who believes that her father has been killed, and eventually she finds out that her father hasn't actually been killed, but there's like a sort of lycanthropic family curse that sort of affects them when they get to a certain age. And her father, rather than sort of put her through all of that problem, sort of effectively faked his own death and disappeared. And sort of midway through the book, she's sort of getting to that sort of age where like the curse starts to affect her, so she starts like waking up in places and not knowing how she got there. There's a few bits where she sort of wakes up and there's like blood on her and she doesn't know how it's happened, and the rest of the story is her sort of trying to reconcile her working for the police as like a detective and sort of trying to piece together the history of like what really happened to her father and sort of what she's been doing with her sort of nocturnal activities that she doesn't remember. But as she goes through the book and she gradually sort of becomes more accustomed to these changes, she slowly starts to remember more of it and gain more control over it. And the book ends obviously like pitching for a sequel with the sort of like the cliffhanger of like when she finally like tracks down this person she thinks killed her father, and they have that scene where she sort of like kicks open the door and bursts into the room. It's all dark. There's just like a flickering street lamp shining through the broken windows, and she shouts out, "I'm here to find out what you did to my father." And at which point it turns around and it is her father. And that's where the story ends, with just her father turning around and just saying her name, and that's the last line. And obviously, it's pretty obviously telegraphed that he's like planning to write a sequel, and he's trying to sort of like establish it as like a sort of urban fantasy / supernatural like series.
Yeah, I joined one of the fan sites and post on the forums.
Yeah, no problems. It's not the best book you've ever read, but it's not the worst either. You know, you can tell obviously you know a bit of like Sean Waters' background. You know that he's like consulted on cases for the police, you know, sort of psychologically, that the bits where it's like her sort of doing her detective thing, he's obviously like spoke to the people he knows in the force, and it's like it's quite detailed and sort of realistic, although the character of the protagonist's not the most developed character.
Yeah,
because obviously he's writing about sort of like a mid-teenage like woman, and he's like very much not a mid-teenaged man. So
yeah,
it's a bit clumsy in places, but sort of like about halfway through the book, he sort of hits his stride a little bit, and it becomes a bit more sort of free flowing, and he's obviously sort of found his feet with the character.
Okay. Can I make like, I guess technically an occult role?
Yeah.
To know if like the werewolf stuff matches up with anything I've actually heard about werewolves.
Okay, yeah, make me an intelligence occult roll.
Just gonna be intelligence.
Okay. You don't really know a lot about real, in inverted commas, like werewolves, but a lot of what you've seen seems to lean quite heavily on the sort of like movie and horror tropes of werewolves. You know, the shock of the transformation, the sort of the disorientation, waking up and not really knowing what's happened, finding yourself in strange places. There's a scene where she sort of like she wakes up in the middle of like a small area of woodland near her home, and she's got like blood on her mouth, and there's like a dead rabbit nearby with like the guts ripped out. And there's obviously the scene where she's like retching because she like thinks she's eaten this rabbit. But like I say, you're not sure if it relates to like actual werewolves, but it seems to like be influenced by like the sort of common tropes.
Okay, that's good. It would be weird if Sean was a werewolf.
Yeah, I think that'd safely qualify as word, yeah. But yeah, so you've woken up, you spent like I don't know, maybe, obviously over the last few days you've like skimmed through it a bit, and you've just sort of like, on the night of the session, you've just sort of finished skimming through like the final chapter when there's like the big reveal that it was her father all along.
And Adrian, who doesn't watch pop culture or anything, thinks that that's an amazing twist.
And since you've been
So
posting
he's
on the
like, "What the
forums,
hell?"
you'll have seen loads of posts on the forums like, oh, call that a twist, oh, most obvious thing ever.
And I'm like, what's Star Wars? I've never... Oh, this has happened before?
And there's a few people sort of like, there's a few people on, just to give you like a general flavour, there's a few people on like these like fan forums. Some of them are praising like the in-depth exploration of the the sort of police, you know, saying, "Oh, I wonder if he based like Constable so and so on like someone he actually knew," because it all seems like quite sort of realistic. There's a few people who are like, "Oh yeah, I used to work for the police, or I do work for the police," and like, yeah, the sort of procedures in there are like fairly sort of on point. There's a couple of people sort of saying, "Oh, the characterization of a couple of the characters was like a little bit weak, certainly at the start of the book." You know, just general online sort of chit chat about it. Some people love it, some people hate it, some people, it's all right. The sort of most ardent fans are sort of saying, "Oh, you know, we hope they get a sequel." Or, you know, do you think there'll be more than like 2 books, or is this just going to be it? Is it just like a one-off? And it's like a double bluff. You know, there's not going to be a sequel. That's just like the end, and you have to imagine what goes on next.
Okay. Well, I'll put that down and I'll get ready for the soiree.
Yeah, no problem. You take out your sharp monochrome suit. It's all crisp.
And my monocle.
Indeed, yeah. You take out your monocle, your little pot of snuff.
I'm like, wait, no, this is too much.
Yeah, you put the monocle and the top hat back on the shelf with like a rueful glance. And you're sort of looking in the mirror. You look very sharp, very natty.
Alright. Yep, and if it's time, then yeah, I'll head over.
Okay. So are you and Seth going to meet up before you head over, or?
I don't see why not.
Okay. So, just for convenience, to say you guys meet outside like the shopping centre again, Vicarage Shopping Centre. You meet up. Unless you've got anything else you want to do before you meet up. So, okay, so you meet up. Seth's there with his sort of like off the rack suit on. Adrian's there with like his natty sort of monochrome, very sharp, almost designer sort of suit. You meet up outside the front of the Vicarage Shopping Centre. You've got about half an hour before the actual shindig is due to start. So if there's anything you guys want to discuss or talk about, feel free.
So, do you have an idea what this is about? Aside from, just hanging?
I think it's mostly just hanging. However, I think the ministry being a large sort of alliance, I think they might be trying to, like, I don't know, build coalitions with some people. So, I don't know, I guess watch that in progress.
Okay, so be on the lookout for being converted, I guess.
Yeah. Well, a lot of these people are going to be the unaffiliated.
Okay, anything we want to put forward tonight, or are we going in with the idea of having a good time and observing?
Both, I guess. I don't know. What do you think we should do?
I'd like to do more vis-a-vis the subculture project, but I don't know if this is the time yet, and I think we might need more resources and whatnot before we do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess we can talk to the ministry people here. I mean, they'll know what to do. Well, they'll be the people to talk to. Sorry.
Right. So I think if they show up, we probably want to eavesdrop on Finn's people. There's a lot going
Yeah.
on there that anything we pick up is probably going to be of interest.
Yeah, I also just kind of want to talk to the other kindred as well.
Yeah.
Get to know the community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, meet the neighbors.
Yeah.
It's almost like a cookout in the garden.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so you guys arrive outside the front of the Enigma. Obviously, it's a Thursday night, so there's no like loud booming music and like flashing disco lights and all that sort of stuff. However, you can see Wade Barrett, the security guy, still with his like black puffer jacket on, bald head, sort of quite sort of well built gentleman, is stood at the front door. He has his like ever present earpiece in. As you walk up to the door, he nods at you and says, "Yep, go right in." Said most of the others are already here, I think.
Okay, thanks, Wade.
He
Yeah,
nods.
thanks.
Okay, so you head into the main sort of area. You see that the main dance floor, there's now like tables there and chairs. The bar still has like the bar person behind it. There's a few people circulating around that you assume must be mortals since you don't recognise them. You can see, Adrian, that there's quite a few sort of like well-toned looking people in the room, sort of circulating about. As you
Excellent.
walk in, you hear a loud sort of joyous exclamation, and you see Valerie Frost. She walks over to the two of you, sort of arms held out, and says, "Oh, good to see you both. I'm glad you could make it."
Of course.
She says, "Well, I'm sure you probably know most of the people here," and she indicates the other sort of ministry people that you met. You can see Stephen Fields, Lucius Ash, and D'Angelo Riddle sort of like moving around. You met them at the meeting previously. She says, "Obviously you know my clan's members, but come on, I'll introduce you to the others here." And she sort of takes you round, sort of just like introducing you to people. The first person she takes you to is a young woman with red hair and sort of odd, like amber coloured eyes, and she says, "This is Angelita Solomon. Angelita, this is Seth Morgan and Adrian Resnick." The young woman, fairly calm expression on her face, nods and then says, "Good to meet you."
Hello.
And she sort of like whisks you on, and she says, I believe you already know Quinn Hopkins." And you see the Ventru who's in charge of Carlton Security. He's wearing like a fairly smart sort of business suit. He's stood there with what looks like a glass of whiskey in his hands, and he just sort of like nods.
Yes, we're already acquainted.
She says, the intense looking fellow over there in the hoodie, and she gestures to the corner room. She says, "That's William Schmidt." Says something of a graffiti artist, I believe they call them nowadays. And yeah, he seems pleasant company, but a bit on the intense side for me. And he says,
Intense how?
very, very sort of into his work, let's say. And he says, the young fellow over there, the one who looks like he's stepped straight out of a play by Byron. That's Desmond Giovanni. I've not really had a chance to speak to him yet, and the young fellow who's buying into the goth, the whole goth subculture a bit too much. That's who he's talking to. That's Alistair Cross.
Mm-hmm.
I think Seth has a suppressed chuckle at that. No. At least it's not Crowley.
She chuckles when she says that. She says, yes, she leans a bit closer, says, yes, I suspect that's not his real name, to be perfectly honest, and she has a bit of a chuckle as well. And she says, but young people will be young people. Who am I to criticise? Anyway, so that's all the people we've invited for this evening. As Adrian advised when I spoke to him about this, we're trying to keep it small and a bit low key, and we've tried to mainly invite people who aren't sort of aligned with the established power blocks, so that we don't cause any tensions with, we've invited someone from this side and not someone from that side, that sort of thing. But this is all just entirely a social, give people a chance to mingle without any sort of crisis hanging over our heads. So I'll be about if you have any questions. Otherwise, I'll just leave you. Feel free. I'll leave you to mingle. If you need a drink, I'm sure you've spotted there's various people about. Obviously, feel free, but of course, be careful. After all, this is our place of business. But as long as everyone, we've told everyone this, as long as everyone's careful, we should be fine. If there's any accidents, we do have contingency plans in place, but obviously we hope there won't be. Anyway, enough of such dour talk. I'll leave you to mingle. Like I say, I'll be around if you have any questions. And she strolls off. And you can see various sort of people, like kindred, sort of chatting with each other, and the various mortals that are dotted about. You can, as we've already established, you can see that Alistair Cross and Desmond Giovanni are sort of sat on one of the sort of like small round tables, like one of those sort of corner sofas, and they seem to be having quite sort of like, not heated, but quite a sort of deep sort of conversation with each other. There is music playing in the background, but it's not like too blaring, just enough so that like if you're not stood next to someone, you can't really like pick up people's conversations from across the room. You can see as you're sort of wandering around, you see the guy in the hoodie, William Schmidt. He walks over to the young woman, the young kindred, with the red hair and the amber eyes, and he's talking to her. Now he's a bit close, you can see there's like splotches of paint on the hoodie that he's wearing, and he's talking to her. She seems pretty nonplussed by what he's saying, but she's like nodding politely and sort of responding back to him. Quinn Hopkins appears to be sort of keeping himself a bit distant, but he's obviously like looking around the room.
Okay.
That's what's going on. Over to you guys.
Alright, Steph, what do you want to do?
I suppose we should feel the waters as far as who these people are and what exactly it is that they do and where.
Oh, do you want to just go talk to those people we were just made aware of?
Do you want the beginnings of a boy band or the young artiste and his friend?
I was thinking we start alphabetically with Angelita, but okay.
Oh, I'm okay. I wasn't expecting that. We can do that.
Okay, so as you walk over to Angelita, you can see that Schmidt is still talking to her, and as you get over, you catch like the last bit of the conversation, and Schmidt he's got a bit of a German accent, which I'm not going to do because I'm terrible at German accents, and he says yes, I don't normally do figurative work. I'm more of a landscape person, but there's something about you, particularly your eyes. At which point she's again sort of like politely, but a fairly neutral expression on her face. She's like, yes, I have been told before that my eyes are quite striking, but thank you for mentioning it. And he's like, have you ever been painted? And she says, no, not really. it's not ever really come up. I can't say it's something I've been losing sleep over. And that's the point when you two walk up.
Hello.
Schmidt turns around and he says, "Oh, hi. Yes, you're the two. You're the two from the meeting, aren't you?"
Yes, yes. Adrian Resnick, and this is Seth Morgan.
Hello.
I'm William Schmidt. You can call me Will. And he says, "This is at which point the one breaks and she says, Angelita Solomon, Clambrugio." And she holds out her hand.
I shake it.
She's got a fairly firm grip, but not like. But yeah, she shakes your hand. Again, she's got a fairly sort of neutral expression.
Can I make a roll to determine if that strong grip is due to the presence of potence or the just like pure like athleticism? And the reason why I'm asking is because I took sports science as a specialty, and I want to make it useful for once.
Yeah, make a roll.
That's brilliant.
Modifier 1. Can you have negative modifiers in this?
I don't believe so. No.
Okay.
That's fine. You've still got one success. So she's fairly athletic looking, but more in that sort of like slim, sort of like gymnast style, sort of athleticism. She's not like ripped. So you're pretty sure that like the strength of her grip isn't solely down to the fact that she's got bulging muscles.
Okay. Finally got to use that specialty, so I feel good.
As you're sort of doing that, and you're sort of mentally going over in the background, you just hear sort of like Schmidt sort of saying, "Yes, I was just saying to Miss Solomon," and she's like, "Please, you don't have to keep calling me Miss Solomon. My name's Angelita." So I was just saying to Angelita that with her striking look, she should really consider getting herself painted or getting a portrait or something along those lines done. I mean, I'm more of a landscape sort of graffiti style guy myself, so maybe not me, but yeah, you should definitely consider getting it done. At which point, again, you can see that like obviously she's not that bothered, but very politely she's like, "Oh yeah, I'll give it some consideration." With the sort of very fairly unsubtle implication that she's not going to give it any consideration, but like he doesn't seem to have like picked up on that. He just seems to be not sort of transfixed by her. I mean, she's not the most beautiful person you've ever seen. The only thing really striking about her is she's got this red hair and she's got these like amber coloured eyes, which seems to have like captured his like imagination, and he's effectively trying to like butter her up so he can like paint her. And she's blatantly just like trying to be polite, but it's basically like, no.
So, right, and this seems like a him thing, not like a presence thing.
Yeah. It just seems like he's really into like the idea of like his paintings, and so like I say, something about her eyes in particular has really like captured his imagination, and he's just like entirely like focused on it at the minute.
Okay. Does it look like if I guess while he's doing that, he's just kind of like talking to like her about like how he wants to like paint her to capture her, like
yeah, you can vaguely hear him sort of like as you're sort of like thinking through. You can vaguely hear him sort of giving some old like BS about like, oh, you know, we might think we're immortal, but art is the only true immortality. That's that sort of spiel.
I like just kind of like look to Seth and I'm like, what what do we do with this? Like, I don't say that. I like
Mhm.
imply it.
I think 'cause Seth isn't extremely equipped for this kind of thing. He might not pick up exactly what Adrian is about, but he has enough of a savvy understanding of people in general that he probably goes for a like swerve thing here. So this is completely different. It's like, so how long have you been doing this thing?
Are you asking that to William or Angelita?
I suppose it would be like for both of them. So it's like to our group, I guess, of
Yeah.
four.
William's like, he says, "Oh, the painting. Oh, yeah, ever since I was like a young lad."
Oh no, I meant the other thing, the one that we all do.
Oh, right, okay. He says, "Well, I was I was embraced not long before the purge happened, and at this point he looks a bit sad. He says, "Unfortunately, my sire was a fan of the street art I did. Unfortunately, he died during the purge, and well, I've just been trying to keep my head down." And he seems to like now he's sort of like he's thinking about this. He seems to have forgotten about Angelita. He's like, I'm just trying to keep my head down, and I mean the art, the graffiti. I mean, it's one of the few things I can still do from before without getting anyone in trouble. So I suppose I've sort of clung on to that a bit. Like the guy who, when like the ship goes down, he's like clinging to a little bit of floating wood because it's all he's got left. I suppose I'm a bit like that, really.
I don't know. We all need something to keep us going, whether or not we are like us or not.
As you're sort of chatting like this, Quinn Hopkins walks over and he very sort of gently like taps you on the shoulder, Adrian, and he says, "Excuse me, do you mind if I have a word in private?"
Who's asking this? Sorry.
Quinn Hopkins, Carlton Security Venture.
Oh, yeah, sure. I think there's some back rooms we can use.
Yeah, you head into a back room with Quinn, and he says, "Look, I'll be honest. I can't say I'm a great fan of this little shindig. All of like the young new vampires. To be honest, I was surprised to be invited. But obviously, I'm not causing any trouble or anything. But I just wanted to make you aware, given the person that we share in common,
Yeah,
I just wanted
Seth.
to. You know very well that's not who I meant.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make you aware that the young lady that was in the group that you were just talking to, let's just say her and our mutual friend had an altercation before the purge.
Okay.
It may come to nothing, but given that I suppose we're family, albeit distantly removed, I just thought I should let you know.
Like, what sort of altercation? How serious was it?
He says, "Well, serious enough that she had to call in a hell of a lot of favours to avoid being banished from the city. I don't know the exact details. I wasn't involved.
Okay.
But I just wanted to let you know.
Oh,
Like I say, it may come to nothing, but if we're going to be mingling with these people, just thought I should let you know."
Okay, well, thanks for the information, I guess.
Not a problem. Look, there's few enough venture around as it is. So the way I look at it, we've got to keep at least half an eye out for each other.
Right. We'll be sure to return the favor.
He nods and says, well, I suppose we should be getting back to the main room, or people will think we're plotting and God knows what.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, let's get on with the dog and pony show then, shall we? And he sighs deeply, and then he walks back into the main room and resumes his sort of like cool demeanour of like, yeah, and just sort of like looking around at people.
Alright.
So you arrive there just as William Schmidt sort of finishing his spiel about, you know, like the art's one of the few things he's got to hang on to from the time before.
I kind of look to like Steph and try to like just give him a look, trying to indicate, yeah, keep this going. Like he seems to be easy to get to keep him talking. And I turn to Angelita and I'm like, yeah, so you're one of the Bruja?
That's right, yes.
Yeah. I'm afraid my sire died, but very shortly into my introduction to this world. So
Oh, I'm
afraid
sorry to hear that.
it is what it is. I'm afraid I don't know much about the Bruja.
She smiles a little, and then says, "Well, what information you get depends on who you're asking. I mean, if you'd have asked back in the old days, most of them would have told you, we're sort of fiery rebels and revolutionaries and anarchs, every man jack of us. But obviously that's the case for some bourgeois. But we're as different from each other as the members of any clan. Obviously we've got certain similarities. I've been told that I can become a bit sort of righteous and obsessed, if I think I'm fighting for a cause. But the way I like to think about it is being a kindred doesn't change who you are, like, internally. It just like adds another layer on top of whoever you were before, and it just turns up to 11 whatever characteristics you had before. So I was always a bit of a fighter for a cause, protests, things like that. I always getting myself involved with things like that. And the Embrace didn't change that. Sure, it maybe ramped it up a bit, but it didn't like entirely remake me as a person. Sorry, I don't know what clan you're from. I know back in the day it was a bit rude to ask that sort of thing, but I figured, like you guys were saying at the meeting, Brave New World and all that. Why not?
Yeah,
I'm not ashamed of my clan, so.
Yeah, I'm one of the Ventru.
So, all right.
Does she look disappointed?
No, not really. Again, like her face is sort of like fairly neutral. She's like, yeah. Well, like I say, as with Clan Brojar, I mean, I presume with Clan Ventru, just because you're a member of the Ventru clan doesn't mean you're all carbon copies of each other, does it?
Yeah, I
mean, obviously, I can see that you're not cut from the same cloth as and she points at Quinn, who's stood a little way off. You're obviously not cut from the same cloth as like the fellow in the slightly less smarter suit than yours over there.
I kind of like pause for a moment because I'm like, oh, technically, I was cut from the same cloth. Yeah. Clearly, there were very different reasons for the circumstances of our embraces.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, and forgive me if I sound a bit out of touch. I mean, it's been a while since mine, so I believe my sire. I mean, my sire, when I last saw them, was in a different city, so I don't know I don't know what's happened to them. Obviously, with things being what they are, I've not made an attempt to contact them, because it might cause problems. But I believe my sire was attracted to me, let's say, because I was always one to like stand up and support a cause if I thought it was right, and I think that appealed to them. I mean, sort of back in the day, if there was like a fight going on and the Camarilla needed to pitch in, the Brujar were always the first in the line, as long as they thought what they were doing was right.
Right. So what cause do you still fight for causes?
As and when they come along. At the minute, no. I mean, like I say, it's not just any cause. It's got to be something I actually believe in. And for me, like I say, I've been around a little bit. I find sort of some of the things that maybe would have sort of got my ire up when I was younger don't sort of have the same emotional impact for me now. So I think probably I've just become a little bit more selective as I've got a bit older. How about yourself? What's your thing anyway?
Well, I was kind of involved with getting people together to start this society.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to admit, obviously, I was at the meeting when it was all sort of laid out, and pretty impressive. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I'd have laid good money against a new society being organised to like fill the void that quickly, but I'm glad to see you're making it a little bit more progressive. I mean, don't get me wrong, there were some bits about the Camarilla that were great, but other bits not so much.
Yeah, I took one political science class in uni as an elective, so yeah, I was basically just relying on that. But yeah, and now I guess I'm just hoping it doesn't all fall apart, and two, just try to make sure I see how people are reacting to this.
Yeah, well, I mean, much as, and obviously I'm not trying to downplay the horrors and the loss of what happened during the purge, but if there was going to be a time when it was possible for someone to establish a new society, now would be it, because a lot of the older vampires aren't about anymore, and the young ones have all been sort of shocked into sort of waking up and seeing what's actually going on. I think part of the problem back in the day was we could always sort of comfort ourselves with the fact that we were more powerful than the humans. They didn't really pose us any danger, and out of sight, out of mind. But now we've all seen the purge. It's not like any of us can slip back into that complacency and say, "Oh no, humans never cause us any problems," because we've all seen it.
Right. Right, yeah. Now, now we have to be much more careful than previously.
Yeah.
So if you're not,
oh, sorry.
if you're
Go
not,
ahead.
yeah, if you're not fighting for a cause these days, what do you find yourself doing?
A little bit of this and that. Like I say, like a lot of people, I'm trying to keep my head down. Keep my nose clean. I'm with regards to like the new society. I'm waiting to see how it all shakes out. Like yourself, I until there was like laws established, I didn't want to run the risk of getting myself into trouble, so I sort of kept like a fairly low profile. I think once we've sort of seen how the society is going to shake out, what's needed, maybe I'll find myself a cause within that. I mean, that's what I'm hoping, but you never know. Well,
Right.
what are you planning to do after this shindig is finished? Anyway, I was probably going to head down to the K-Faz and do a bit of hunting.
What's a KFAS?
The Kindred Free Action Zone.
Oh, right, right. Thought it was a fancy British term, and I was all confused. Um, yeah, yeah. No, like, was that like an invitation?
You're not sure? That's
Uh-huh.
just what she said.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not too sure. What I didn't have any particular plans, to be honest.
She says, well, there's a little Irish bar down there that I sometimes go to. I go in, have a few games of cards. Nothing, nothing too ridiculous. It helps to pass the time. So I mean, you're welcome to come along if you want.
Yeah.
I don't
Um.
anticipate I'll be staying here all night. Although I'm glad and she sort of like gestures with her eyes towards Schmidt, who you can see still like talking to Seth about like graffiti and whatever. She's like, "Yeah, I'm glad you gave me a bit of a break in the conversation." Eh?
Yeah. Yeah. This might be the most opportune time to slip away.
Well, it's only just started. I should probably stay a bit longer. I don't want to insult the host, but I think probably I'll probably slip out after an hour or so.
Right. All right. All right. I kind of meant just the conversation, but
Oh, I see. I see.
all right. So I do need to see how Seth is getting on.
Not a problem. Well, I'm going to go and chat to some of the other kindred here. So I'll give you a wave before I'm heading out. Then if you want to come and have a hand of poker or whatever, you're more than welcome to come along.
Yeah, sure.
Like I say, much as I can appreciate the sort of the idea behind this of all getting together and being a bit more social and stuff like that. Getting together in like a club that's owned by Satites isn't really my idea of a fun time, to be honest. I'd rather
Yeah.
a pub and a few games of cards, but it's not to everyone's liking. Anyway,
Yeah.
I'll let you get back to
Yeah.
it. Like, so I'll give you a wave when I'm heading out in case you do want to come.
Yeah, sure, sure.
All right, take care. And she wanders off.
Yeah, I rejoined Seth.
Yeah,
Oh,
you head over. Schmidt's still like waxing lyrical about his art.
Yeah,
You know,
I've been
like,
prodding him along.
yeah, and he's talking about how the thing about sort of street art that can be like cleared away at any time is that the transitory nature of it only like enhances the beauty and the uniqueness of the pieces. And like, even if you like photograph sort of like street art, it's not the same. You have to be there and sort of experience it, but it's the fact that it's temporary that makes the experience have value. And Adrian
So-
walks up and he's like,
mm-hmm. Yep.
"Yep." But you're sort of quite obvious, like, Schmidt doesn't even seem to pick up on it. He's like in his flow. He's like in his element. Like someone's been like, "Oh yes, talk to me about art," and he's like, "Ah." like he's been waiting all evening for someone to say, "So about that art then."
I guess I'll sort of lean to Adrian and just sort of side whisper / grumble. Just go like, so how did that go?
Um, pretty good. She seemed interesting and fairly social. Unaffiliated.
hmm So, yeah, William here is a very talented young artist.
Oh, that's very kind of you to say, Seth. Yeah, I mean, I've been doing it a while, although I've got to admit, I do feel as though I've sort of lost something with since my change. It's a bit more difficult to be sort of spontaneous and really sort of capture the emotions that I used to pour into my art. But I keep sort of plugging away. I'm sure I'll get back there again.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in, and you can't do it during the daylight hours anymore.
Yeah. Although, to be honest, I never used to do a lot during the day. I mean, people tend to have sort of strange views about graffiti on their walls. So.
Yeah, I believe there's some legal language around that specific thing.
Yeah, I did have a few run-ins with the law back in the day, but it's the price you pay for your art.
Mm. So I wish you the best luck, and don't get caught. We don't need trouble with the officials.
He laughs and says, "Well, that's one thing that's good about my current condition. It's easier to persuade people to look the other way."
That seems handy, I say, as I sort of lead Adrian away, like taking his arm. It's just like, and we're done.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine.
Okay.
Right, who else do we want to talk to?
I was thinking about what Mr. Hopkins had to say.
Mm-hmm. Oh
Anything
yeah, he
of
told
interest?
me that that Bruja had a altercation with my sire.
Oh, that one, and I nod after her.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have from the looks of it, Dorian Gray and Chris Angel.
Yeah. Dorian Gray?
And I'll,
Oh, you
I'll,
mean-
I'll nod at Mr. Giovanni.
Right. Sorry, which was which? Was the thing I was wondering.
Oh, he's Gray and he's Angel.
Right. Sorry, that took me a moment for some reason. Yeah. And they work both ways around, I feel. So, yeah, I don't know. Let's talk to Dorian.
So, John, are these two? I think you said that they were chatting around.
Yeah, well, they're sat on like a sort of corner sofa with like a
Right.
little round table, and they're just like talking to each other.
Yeah.
As you approach them, you hear Alistair Crofts say, "Well, Des, it's all a matter of sympathies. You see, every object, every person, every facet of life and indeed unlife resonates sympathetically with other things, and for those who know how to use those sympathetic connections, effects that would seem miraculous to some can be achieved as long as the person knows how to do so." At which point Desmond Giovanni is like, yeah, I can see what you're saying, but I don't know. I've just never really been into that sort of thing, to be honest. Never really had the chance, to be fair. And I says, well, that's a shame. You really should sort of delve into it a bit more. It's the most interesting field of study. And I said that's when you guys approach.
Yeah. So I'll just butt right in and say, please allow me to introduce my friend Adrian Resnick. He's a man of wealth and taste. And I myself, Seth Morgan, I've been around a long year, as you can probably tell by the stubble. Now,
At which point, Alistair says, "Well, I'm pleased to meet you, Mr. Resnick, and I suppose I don't have to guess your name."
Yes.
He stands up and holds out an immaculately manicured hand. He's like, so going the whole gosh shtick. He's got like silver jewellery. He's got like pendants around his neck. He's wearing like the crushed velvet sort of jacket, the works, frilly like shirt sleeves, the lot.
pleased to meet you.
Yeah,
He
I
shakes
shake his hand. Now, when he shakes my hand.
Will you please take a seat? Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
When he shakes your
When
hand.
he, yes, I make a roll to determine the relative strength and
I love it.
I will tell
No.
you, you don't have to make a roll. There's not a lot of strength to his grip.
Okay. All right. I take a seat.
As you sit down, Desmond Giovanni says, "So, how are you finding this whole whatever this is?"
Well, it's a regular carnival of earthly delights, isn't it? It's somewhat of a challenge making friends, being what we are.
He nods and says, sort of sighs a little, and says, "Well, call me a pessimist, but I don't think it'll be too long before kindred start like falling back into like the usual sort of clan lines. It's bound to happen."
Really?
Yep. I'll be surprised if they don't. Can't say I've ever been a big fan of it myself, but it's just how things are.
I don't think that necessarily has to happen. I mean,
He says, "Well, look at it this way. When you get people together, like a big group of people, let's say, they naturally split off into like similar groups. They identify themselves as like, right, us people are in this group, and people outside that are in a different group, and they start butting heads. It's just how things work. And much as we like to think we're different, Kindred are no different. We've just got names for like the groups, and it's linked by the blood. And people will soon start sort of settling down into clans. And once that happens, either the old problems will start flaring up, or new problems will occur because one group will have a beef with another group. It's bound to happen. Nothing we can do about it."
is that how clan and groups form? Isn't it more to do with like you have relationships with your sires and they're obviously necessarily
He sort of
obviously
goes
clan?
like, huh, when you say that.
Well, usually, sometimes, yeah. I don't know. Mine died early on, and that creates these like communities.
He says, "Well, I'll take your word for it. Mine never had much time for me, to be honest."
That's a shame, but yeah, it is what it is.
He says, "Yeah, apparently my blood wasn't strong enough," or something like that. He says in quite a scornful voice.
I don't know what that means, but yeah, sounds horrible.
He says, "Beats me. All I know is I was embraced, and literally from the moment I was embraced, my sire seemed to regard me as a vast disappointment. And I can't, since it was from the moment of my embrace, I can't think that it was anything I did. So
I think you may find that there is a significant speed bump on the way to returning to any kind of previous divisions, given that I would say a great number of even the people here have similar experiences to yours. Now, not all the details will be the same, but well, you had this. Obviously, it touched you, and you still carry that with you. The one responsible for me being here today made me to throw me to the wolves as soon as I twitched to life again.
Says, oh, that's rough.
It is, but as my friend says, it is what it is. And that being true, I still think there's quite a generational experience at work here, where we have these experiences, and those who are responsible for us are not there anymore. And there is a way to a vastly different future than there would have been if the ones who made us were still there.
At which point Desmond Giovanni nods and he says, well, my family, my mortal family, we've been tied up with the kindred for God knows how many years. And the way it works in my family is that the way you're told it is if you work well for the family, you do your time, eventually you'll get the embrace. That's how it works. They sort of dangle it over your head. And it was no different for me. I spent years like working for the family, all with the promise of like, oh, I'll keep working for the family and you'll be embraced, and then you'll be like part of like the real family, like the sort of overseeing group. But for me, literally from the moment I spent all those years trying to earn the embrace, and then as soon as it happened, my sire was just like, no, your blood's not strong enough. You're a terrible disappointment. I'm pretty much washing my hands of you.
Oh, that sounds awful.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't really know what to do with myself at first. I mean, to be honest, when we were travelling through London, if we'd not got caught up in that whole like purge thing and like, Messiah hadn't got killed, I don't know what I'd have done. I don't know if he'd just left me in London, if he'd just like left me somewhere else. But when Messiah died, I found myself in London. I didn't really have the resources to go anywhere else, so I've just tried to settle down here as best I could.
What is it that you two do around here?
At which point Alistair Cross says, well, I can't speak for Daz, but I am a student of the occult.
Really?
Indeed, my
back.
My raison d'etre is to plumb the depths of occult knowledge and those things that mortal man was. And he gets quite dramatic. He's like, the mortal man was.
He's reading lines from a play.
Yeah, but basically, yeah, it feels like he's like reciting it from a play. It's like those things that may seem strange or supernatural to the uninitiated hold a fascination for me. In fact,
how's that going?
It's a slow and difficult process. As with anything that's worthwhile, it takes a great deal of time and effort to truly understand these things. And I'm fairly young as kindred go, so I'm just at the start of my journey. In fact, I was just chatting to Des here about him and saying that he should. I believe his family's, from what I understand, is a bit that way inclined, although he himself has not awakened that heritage within his blood. I was saying that he should perhaps take a few trembling steps onto those wide vistas of understanding himself. It might give him a little focus. Since I'm sure you wouldn't mind me saying this, Des, at which point he's like, and he's been, since he was effectively abandoned here, not by his choice. He's been somewhat drifting along on the currents of his nightly life, and I thought that maybe having a project or something that he could get his teeth into, no pun intended, would give him a little bit of focus. At which point Desmond Giovanni's like, yeah, my family's all into all that wizard shit, but again, they don't let the mere peons like myself sort of get involved with that. It's always like, oh, when you get the embrace, when you're one of like the head honchos, then this will all be opened up to you and you'll understand everything, which obviously didn't happen for me, did it?
So you're here tonight. Where do you spend your nights? Which part of our great city? Or are you from the country, perhaps? I'm interested because, my friend here have sort of adopted a raison d'être to bring us together more in a way, and well, our hosts have made a good job of doing that tonight, but one should like to have as many friends as one can in these nights.
At which point Alistair says, well, this is practically my backyard. I'm from Abbey in the same way that the Enigma club's here. I think, Des, did you say you were from Longbridge? She said, yeah. Longbridge is where I've been sort of holed up. Certainly recently, anyway. I wandered about a bit. Like I say, I was pretty much dropped here without any sort of ceremony, so I sort of wandered around a bit and settled down in Longbridge. Says I'm just I'm not too far away from the old War Memorial up in Longbridge.
Oh, yes. So, well, me and Adrian, we do a fair bit of business with the hosts here. We're sort of the men about town, I guess, you would say. So,
indeed, says Alistair. And, are either of you particularly adept in the arts?
The art of punching people in the face. Yes.
He looks at it confused and he says, no, I speak of the arts arcane.
Then no.
Adrian is somewhat of a wizard inside the octagon, I believe. That's what they say, Adrian?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yes. I'm a wizard of the octagon.
I'm not familiar with that particularly scholarly institution, says Alistair. Well, where does it hail from? Is it, and what field of the mystic does it specialise in?
Yeah, it appears not. It's not in any one fixed location, of course. It was not founded, but was run by the great wizard Dana White, and
it follows the cycle of the moon. every month there's a holy day.
yes.
No. I lean over.
We call it the cage.
I lean over and say, he used to do the wrestling circuit or the sort of martial arts circuit.
He's like, Alice is like, oh, I see. I can't say I'm familiar with the sport. I have precious little time for such things. My studies consume the vast amount of my attention.
I can only imagine. So, well, uh, I think we might need to socialize a bit more. There's a schedule, I believe, that we have to keep to, at least to some degree, tonight, Adrian. And I would be ashamed to miss anyone. But delighted to have made your acquaintance. If you see us about, you have an issue, bring it up. We're here to be friendly neighbors. We can loan you some sugar, is what I'm saying.
Desmond nods, and Alice is like, "Well, thank you for the kind offer. I shall certainly keep it in mind."
Yeah. So, exit stage left.
Okay, so I'm going to suggest we have like a quick 5 minute break there, guys. Go
Yep.
and use the
Yeah.
conveniences, get a drink, etc., and then we'll come back in 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm just gonna make some noodles. Be right back.
So what's Seth thinking about the various miscreants that you met this evening?
I guess like on the baseline, Seth still does have a bit of that. Like, okay, none of us are people anymore, so like whatever. That will change as we go along, but he's still in, because his whole thing was, I'm a decent person, but these are not people anymore. So
Yeah.
and they are bad and not people, so we need to deal with that. And his like whole process is like, okay, what do I do now? Then I'm one of those. So am I not people anymore? I think I am, though. So he's sort of overarching thing is dealing with that kind of idea. And this, because I've been sort of having Seth be a little bit more lighthearted with stuff in general here. I think it's probably like this kind of stuff probably helps him deal with his own mental sort of maze where he's like, okay, so how to exist now when I'm a vampire as well. So meeting with these people who are clearly not just evil blood drinking monsters, but they have other things as well that they care about, like Mr. Art Guy and Gothstradamus over here. Like people who like embody more than just like the blood and the horror that he knows everyone basically is, at the end of the day, that's what we're all about.
Yeah.
But like these people have more to them. They're almost like young people. So it's almost like, yeah, this is like, I have fuck all in common with any of these people on any level, except the fact that we're all
Vampires, yep.
Yeah, murderers. But it's sort of like, it's just nice to be around these people because they're almost normal. Instead of like Goodman and the fucking Nagaraja and everyone who's like more up in the vampire business, because these people are to Seth anyway, just sort of still starting out. So it's sort of like a nice reminder of like, oh yeah, maybe there's like some good there's something worth fighting for, Mr. Frodo.
Nice.
But as far as like individuals go, it's like I don't know how to deal with any of these. they all have vastly different interests, and I don't know. But it's more like he's looking at this as a sort of club organized for younger people by the ministry. And for some reason, he's here as well, even though he's vastly older than the other guys. As a person, not as a vampire. Yeah. But yeah, he comes from a different point in history.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
But I do enjoy our collection of miscreants here. It does seem like we've just gathered the strays.
Yeah, the waifs from the strays.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, so as you guys continue to sort of like circulate through the gathering of kindred, you find yourselves wandering into the vicinity of two of the ministry who you met previously, D'Angelo Riddle and Lucius Ash. D'Angelo Riddle's wearing like a very smart sort of charcoal grey suit. He's got long hair, goatee beard, etc. He's got like a very quite good looking young woman hanging on his arm, and Lucius Ash is wearing a sort of, again, like dark grey suit. He's looking very serious. You can just see like the edge of some sort of like tattoo sort of coming out through the collar, like up the side of his neck. As you as you're sort of like walking over in their direction, you see Riddle gets out a leather wallet from his pocket. He takes out like a couple of notes, hands them to the young woman. He says, why don't you go and entertain yourself? I'll come and find you if I need you. At which point the woman heads off into the crowd. And he turns to look at the two of you and he says, how does this evening find you?
Good so far.
Excellent.
Yeah, delighted to see so many of us existing in relative harmony here.
Indeed. Well, given the current climate, it's strategically wise for the wolves to lie down with the sheep.
You don't have a particularly high regard for these others?
It's not that I don't have a high regard for them. Merely I sense that we do not share the same perspective. They are very young. They've not yet adapted to their new situation. It's not that I don't regard them. It's that I don't feel I have a great deal in common with them. But as you made clear at the recent gathering, since we're all going to be sharing the same space, it behooves us to at least get to know those who we're going to be in close proximity to.
Yeah, I can understand that. That's half the reason why any of us are doing this, I would think.
And tell me, Mr. Morgan, says Riddle, what do you make of these people? I saw you chatting to our, and a little faint hint of a smile goes in the corner of his mouth, as our young occult scholar over there.
I think before any of this happened, he was probably exposed to certain literary materials, perhaps movies, which makes him a perfect poster boy for the sort of subculture efforts that we've had discussions about before. So I'm thinking we can tap him for that.
At which point Lucius Ash, who you've not heard speak before, in a very quiet voice says, at best he's a romantic, at worst a fool. He'll either learn the error of his ways and a little perspective, or I suspect his hobbies will be his undoing.
That might be so, but before that happens, I think we can probably get some good shots of him for promotional materials. And he seems to live and breathe this thing, so it's a good draw for the club, having him around.
Indeed, says Riddle. The days when our kind were priests and oracles are long gone. We need to adapt and understand the tools that we can use as currency in the current world.
Yeah.
Lucius just nods.
That's the way to the next night, as far as I can tell. Just adapting constantly as we go.
At which point Riddle nods and says, I'm sure you'll forgive Lucius here is opinion of the young wizard. After all, Lucius has spent a good number of years studying that which the young kindred pretends to, and he's very private and guarded about his affairs. So I believe that perhaps the overt nature of the Mr. Cross perhaps affronts him.
Yes, I can see how he makes theater out of whatever this is, and you would prefer that not to be so. I can understand that.
At which point again Lucius in a sort of quiet voice says, "It has been my experience that those who have true power do not need to widely advertise that fact."
Probably so. Keeping in mind that there are various kinds of power in this world.
He nods.
I lay no claim to matters theological myself, having been a humble civil servant myself.
At which point Riddle says, "Well, I'm quite prepared to discuss theology with people. After all, that was somewhat of my stock in trade. Perhaps that's a more serious discussion for another evening."
Yes, I don't think necessarily. This is more in the theaters, like end of the spectrum, if you understand my meaning here.
Indeed, this is more Valerie's forte than it is either mine or Lucius's.
I do find it interesting that Valerie would be a part of all this. It does seem like there is a variance here. I'm sensing a variance in how you approach your spiritual path. Forgive me, I do not have the words for this, but your take on this does seem, to an outsider like me, be vastly different than Valerie's, yet you are one.
Riddle nods and then says, "Valerie is younger than myself. However, because she is younger, she is more in touch with the current state of affairs. The ministry has always prided itself on adapting to work with the times. It is what has allowed us to survive without the shelter of the protection of the various sects. And therefore, since Valerie has a greater understanding of these modern knights, it behooves us to listen to what she has to say and strongly consider her words and the courses of action that she suggests."
I think I should like to, upon an evening of convenience for such matters, I should like to hear more. Given that we all are neighbors here, it would behoove us to learn of each other's habits so we do not step on each other's toes. So, if you're interested, I would like to hear about your thing.
"Yes, I'm sure we can arrange that," says Riddle. Lucius just nods again. At which point there's like a sound of like tinking glass, and as you turn around, you can see like on one of the little sort of stages that normally has like a band on it, but there isn't one tonight. There's just like the sound system playing in some like music. you can see Valerie Frost sort of stood up on the little stage, and she's sort of tinking like a little spoon against a champagne flute to like get everyone's attention. And it's like the music is sort of like lowered in volume. And then she says, "Well, it's gratifying for me to see that so many of you have been able to make it. In fact, everyone we invited, with the exception of one person, made it this evening, and I hope you'll take this as an opportunity to get to know each other a little. After all, we're all going to be neighbours, so we should get to know each other. After all, every night doesn't have to be the weighing of weighty life or death decisions. It's my hope that you'll all mingle, get to know each other, because if we understand each other better, hopefully we can avoid any unnecessary problems in the future. And if any of you require aid of each other, it makes sense to be able to network with people and to know who you can rely on, who your neighbours are. So thank you very much all for coming. It's a shame that Alex Resnick couldn't make it, but I'm glad to see the rest of you here. So please enjoy the rest of your evening, and if you have any questions, please feel free to come up and ask me. We're going to keep the room open as late as we can. Obviously, we'll shut down in plenty of time for you all to get home. But in the meantime, relax, enjoy yourself. Obviously, please, I'm sure I don't have to say this, but please bear in mind you are in our place of work, and I would ask for a little bit of common courtesy with regards to that. But aside from that, enjoy yourselves, have a pleasant evening, and let's all get to know each other a little better. And a few people like raise drinks and like, oh yeah. And then she sort of steps down off the stage and she starts mingling and chatting with people again. The music comes back up again in volume, and the general hubbub of conversation rises up again.
I'm sorry, what was that name?
Oh, the name she gave when she said the person who couldn't make it. Alex Resnick.
Oh no, I'm going to her and asking
her
about
yeah,
that.
Sorry, I thought you were asking me as the GM.
Yeah.
No, you head over to her. She's just like chatting to a few people you think probably mortals. You walk over and you're like, oh, sorry, what was that name again? She says, Alex Resnick, another kindred I've met who expressed an interest in attending. Unfortunately, he sent back the invitation saying that he wasn't going to be able to make it, which is a shame. But out of all the people we invited, one no-show isn't bad as far as things go.
How do you know this kindred?
Quite by happenstance, to be honest. One of my coterie, Mr. Fields, Stephen, encountered him during the course of his nightly activities, and since we weren't aware of him, and he seemed to be an unaligned kindred, we extended the hand of friendship, as we did to all of the people here, and mentioned that we were going to have this little soiree. Unfortunately, he was unable to attend, but such is the way of things, I suppose. Like I say, one out of all these people isn't bad, though. And I'm glad to see everyone seems to be getting on and behaving themselves.
And how did they seem when you met them?
How do you mean?
What was their demeanour? Their state?
Calm, a little surprised when Stephen approached them. Stephen's pretty good at spotting kindred. That they were a bit surprised that he spotted them, but they seemed quite reasonable. I mean, I didn't meet them directly myself. From what Stephen told me, they seemed quite reasonable.
Okay. I would like to make an insight check. Because I'm wondering if she hasn't is sincerely she has not realized a connection, or if she's playing me, as it were.
Make your insight check.
Very insightful.
Okay, you think from what she's saying, she's obviously realised that like you and this kindred have the same last name, but she's not like deliberately trying to like hold this over to you. She's
Right.
So she's not sort of like gone like, oh, you must be related, but she obviously she's realised that you've got the same surname, especially now with you sort of coming over and going, what was that name again? But she basically just seems to be like not sort of pushing it. She probably wants to know if there's any sort of relationship, but she's deliberately like not pushing it. She's keeping it casual, keeping the conversation light. She seems to be honestly like answering your questions. And when she says, "Oh, I didn't actually meet this kindred, Stephen met them," she's been quite sincere. Or that's how she appears.
Okay. Dun 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 dun. Would you mind if I asked Stephen some more details on the
No,
circumstances of this meeting?
no, of course not. I mean, the whole point of this evening is for people to chat, get to know each other, talk about what's going on with us. I mean, he's it's just over there, look. And she points to Stephen. You can see him as previously. He's got all the sort of like white, sort of like goth paint on, like the blue lipstick, etc. He's not difficult to spot.
Thank you.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, I leave and I go talk to Stephen.
Yeah, not a problem. You head over to him. He's just generally chatting to a couple of like normal mortals. It looks like he's just sort of he's chatting. He's basically trying to like sell some of these sort of like goth rock nights that they're going to be doing in future at the Enigma, and he's sort of chatting about how it's going to work to these people. He's like, "Oh, so we can have the band over there." And he's reading off some of like the songs they're going to be played, saying they've basically got like a few cover bands that do like classics of rock and like goth music. And he's saying, "Oh, we might eventually diverge and have like a dedicated rock night and a dedicated goth night, but we're just sort of like dipping our toes in the water at the minute, see if the demand's there. But we're hoping if there is, we can eventually sort of expand it into more of a thing. We're looking to encourage people of the various communities to come to the Enigma Club and to see it as a place where they can relax, have fun." He's generally just selling the concept to like this small group of people he's talking to.
All right. I'll butt in at some point and ask him if he wouldn't mind answering some questions I had.
He says, well, no, of course not. That's fine. If you'll excuse me for a few moments, and he like steps aside with you. And he's like, what can I do for you, Adrian?
Yeah, so I heard that you're the one who met up with this Alex kindred that wasn't in attendance today.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I was wondering if you could tell me more about the circumstances of you running into this person.
He says, well, since I knew we were organising this this little gathering, I've been keeping my eyes out for kindred, because I assumed there must have been a few that slipped through the cracks. In fact, there was a young kindred a young woman I met who works at a rest home, and I extended an invitation to her as well, but she said that she wanted to keep out of kindred affairs, and that's fine. That's her business.
Yeah,
but basically, Valerie set to me the task of having a bit of a poke around, see if I could find any kindred who might have slipped through the cracks. So we could extend a hand of friendship to them as well. Hopefully, bring them into this new community that we're all looking to build. I mean, after all, if it's going to be a community for the good of all the kindred, then surely we want all of the kindred to be involved. Well, was Valerie's thinking.
So yeah, sorry, where did you find this person?
Says, oh, it was Whalebone. I met him. He was he was just well, I probably shouldn't say this, but he was I came across him while he was feeding. Obviously I waited till he finished. I mean, there's no need for bad manners, but and then once we finished, I introduced myself. He was quite surprised that he'd been spotted, and but once I'd assured him I wasn't there to cause him any problems, I didn't have any hostility towards him, and that I was simply looking for kindred to invite to this small gathering, and I explained a little bit about him, myself, etc. He seemed fairly interested. He did say he wasn't sure whether he'd be able to make this meeting, but he left me a PO box address where I could send an invitation to, which I did. Unfortunately, we received the invite back with a nice letter from him saying that unfortunately he was unable to attend, which is a shame. But you know, everyone has things going on in their life, so.
Interesting. Now, sorry if I asked a few oddly specific questions, but
That's fine.
what type of person was he feeding on?
It was a young gentleman, I believe. I didn't see anything noteworthy about them. I mean, from their clothing, I assumed they'd gone out for an evening's jog. I mean, they were wearing like a tracksuit, trainers, that sort of thing. I assumed he'd accosted them while they were out for an evening jog or something. I didn't really ask him the details.
Yeah. So where was it exactly in Whalebone?
He gives you the street address.
Right. And is it just like I get it now? I guess I wouldn't know anything about a specific street just from the address. Yes, and if you had to guess, what level of means would you say this person was? Like, was he well dressed? Was he?
Well, he was wearing. He wasn't particularly well dressed. He was wearing, but I wouldn't say he was a pauper. He was wearing fairly casual clothes. You know, I think it was like a brown wax jacket, if I remember correctly. I mean, it was a couple of nights ago. He had a sort of beard. His hair was a little bit tousled, but other than that, I didn't notice he had a very sort of piercing gaze. Now I come to think about it, it was very striking. But beyond that, there was nothing remarkable about his appearance. Slightly sort of swarthy complexion, but
So, okay. So, if you don't know, it's fine. But if you had to guess, what clan would you associate?
I mean, I can guess, but it is entirely a guess. If I was buying into the clan stereotypes, I'd say the slightly sort of weathered clothing, the slightly sort of rough and ready appearance. I'd say maybe Gangrel, Brujon, something like that. But that is very much a guess. I mean, as we've seen, not all Brujon look the same, not all Gangrel look the same. So I wouldn't place much stock in my guess, to be honest. But
all right. And did you get any indication of Wait, so he gave you a PO box?
Yes, he gave me a PO box, a post office box where what we could send the invitation to. It's at the post office in Whalebone.
Okay. Um, would you mind giving me the PO box or?
No, no, it's PO box 377.
Okay. Thank you.
No, that's fine. Do you mind if I ask why the sudden interest?
Um, sorry, he's someone that I thought died a long time ago.
Oh, right. Well, here's hoping you can reconnect. I mean, after all,
Yes.
that's the point of this whole thing.
Yes, of course. Thank you.
Oh, not a problem. Not a problem. Is there anything else?
No thanks.
Oh, no problem. I'm going to get back to talking to those people over there. I'm hoping that obviously a lot of the sort of mortals gathered here are people who are potentially interested in the scene that we've been discussing. So I'm trying to sort of get the word out. Get the ball rolling.
All right.
Well, I'll speak to you soon. And he meanders off back to these people and starts sort of chatting to them again about these various different evenings that they're planning to do at the Enigma.
All right. Very well. I think about what just happened, and I see if Seth is about.
Yeah, he's about.
Hey, Seth.
Hmm?
How's it going? What have you found? Found anything interesting?
Well, I've found several of our neighbors that I did not know existed, so that is something.
I found the existence of an old enemy.
Are they present currently?
No.
Good. I was thinking this might take a different turn. Okay. We should probably go talk about it, and then just like go find like a corner free of others to discuss this in.
I fill you in on what I learned, and then I say, so I know the approximate location of him, and potentially we can drive some sort of clue about their hunting patterns and where they hunt.
Okay.
As you're sort of saying this, you hear like a from behind you.
Yes.
You turn around and there's a young woman stood there wearing sort of fairly standard sort of club goer gear, sort of slightly goth, slightly rock sort of gear, new rocks, the like. And she says, "Oh, excuse me, are you is one of you Adrian Resnick?"
Yes. One of us is.
She reaches into her blouse and takes out like it's also like an A4 piece of paper that's been like folded into three, and she says, I was asked to give you this.
By whom?
Some guy asked me to give it you. So gave me like a very rough description of you and said there was going to be an evening do on here. There was like free drinks and whatever, and all I had to do was give you this letter. Well, at least I assume it's a letter.
All right. Well, no, thank you.
Oh no, it's fine. Free drinks.
What's the guy look like? Big, tall, young, old?
Medium height, bit beard, dark hair.
Of course.
Okay. All right. Enjoy your drinks.
She's like, oh, thanks. I mean, she still stood there, but she's just like, oh, thanks, and she's like sipping her drink.
I look at the paper.
Okay, you open the piece of paper, and it has one single line of, obviously, like sort of printed out like computer text in it, and it just says a little gift for you.
Did anything else come with it?
No, no.
In which case, I like show it to Sif, and I like look like a little gift. What's the gift?
As you're saying that, the woman who's been like stood there sipping drinks suddenly lets out like a really like massive belch, and she's like, "Oh, sorry about that. Excuse me."
I take a sniff of the paper. Like, is there anything on it particularly?
No.
Okay.
You get that sort of papery smell that you get from
Yeah.
like a big sheet of like store-bought paper.
Yeah. So like everything, literally everything, just like checks out as this being like just a paper that says a gift, and I don't know, Adrian. With a side eye to our groupie, I guess.
Okay, at this
Yeah.
point, can you both make me a wits awareness roll?
I've got so many pictures open that my sheet is just buried.
I think of how I'm dealing with it, man. I've got all
Yeah,
the
I know.
NPCs.
Yeah. Oh boy.
So that's when I was writing this session. I was like, hey, I know what would be a good idea. Having
Yeah.
like all the NPCs in a room.
Yeah. Just what? So it was wits awareness, was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Oh,
had a
that
refresh.
is 5 successes and a messy critical.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh.
boy. At least it's not a bestial failure.
Yeah, that's
Oh.
true. That could be very unfortunate.
That's what almost got me in the subway, like at the very start. Just like messing up.
Okay, so it's so. I mean, you don't notice this, Adrian, but it's so like subtle. But you, with your sort of like your hunger growing, Seb, you, as the like young woman sort of stood there and she's sort of like has a bit of a belch and she's like drinking a drink, you catch mixed in with the sort of horrible like alcoholic
Exhalation.
smell of the burp.
Yeah.
You pick up like a faint sort of like waft of blood sort of underlying it, which causes you to sort of look round at her, and you can see sort of on her forehead there's an almost invisible sort of like hair thin red line slowly going down the middle of her face, like sort of like moving down her face.
Is it a trail left by a droplet, or is it a line just being
It just seems to be
drawn?
like a red line, almost like someone's with a very
Yeah,
thin
with
pen
a-
is like
yeah.
drawing a red line, but it's just like appearing and like moving down there. But it's like so thin it's almost unnoticeable. You've only spotted it because you smelt the faint like waft of blood that caused you to look.
Is there a lavatory up here?
Yep.
Adrian, with me, and I sort of go like, so let me show you to the. I've been sort of imagining that this is sort of like the upstairs. Like,
I thought for a minute you were going to say to her, "Let me show you to the lavatory." that doesn't sound weird.
yeah, that's where we're going. But I say to her, like, let me show you to the sidebar for your free drinks, and I'll sort of
She's like,
get her arm and just like
Oh, thank you.
rapidly
Sorry.
like frog march her
okay.
into the lavatory.
At which point, make me a Dex Athletics roll.
Dex athletics. This might not be.
You can also make a Dex Athletics if you wish, Adrian.
All right.
I will re-roll 2 dice. Oh, I guess yeah, we would have recovered our willpower because it's a couple of days, and I don't know if Adrian spent any, but I did.
Yeah, I did. I recovered one.
Yeah. So I reroll 2 dice. Yeah. So. Well, that's shit. So, one
Luckily
me.
for you, as you're like your speech to Adrian like conveys the sense of urgency, and Adrian, it's pretty much like Adrian like pulling the two of you along like really quickly. It is what gets you to like the latrining time, and you've just gone into the sort of the lavatory. Like, luckily, well, I tell you what, Adrian, roll me a d10. Just see if there's anyone else in there. Yeah, you find there's no one else in there. You've literally like taken a few steps into the room with this young woman. The door's shut behind you. She gets as far as saying, "Hey, this isn't the private bar." And as she says that, it's almost like there's like 4 zippers running down her body. Like she just like peels open, like her skin just peels off. Sort of like flopping, almost like some sort of bloody, grotesque flower blooming in the middle of the night. Her skin peels off, flopping to the floor in like 4 sort of temporarily wriggling segments, leaving you for a moment sort of stood there with just literally this like viscera-stained skeleton still stood there like holding the drink. And then obviously the skeleton like collapses on the floor because it can't. The musculature's peeled off and it can't support its own weight. The skeleton like clatters to the floor. There's a as the glass hits the floor, and sort of whatever cheap like whiskey they're selling here like over the floor, mixing with the like spreading pool of viscera and blood. Obviously, you both get liberally sprayed with it.
Well, fuck. Son of a bitch.
I'm gonna go get the paper towels.
Yep.
Set the water running. Wash my face.
Yep.
Off come the clothes,
Yep.
and well, I guess I'll toss the because I was thinking my slacks are probably black, so it doesn't show up that
Yeah,
way.
you're fine with the black.
Yeah, so I'll get the jacket off, and I'll grab a couple of towels to like put on my chest here, so that I guess my white shirt isn't super red. As I tell Adrian, it's like I'm gonna go get someone.
I can. No, hang on.
Luckily for you, Adrian, because your suit's monochrome,
Yeah.
a lot of it's black, so you're not too bad.
I kind of imagined that I did have like a white shirt, so I can just take my jacket off, take the shirt off, put the jacket back on,
Yeah,
and kind of just rock the
bare-chested,
shirtless. Yeah.
Everyone's go, people seeing that aren't going to be like, oh my god, he must have sprayed his shirt with blood. They're just going to be like, oh, there's Adrian getting his pecs out again.
Yeah, he's showing off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But you got to sort of walk in and give it some of the old like.
I will call. Actually, it's probably bad to call. I'll call Steven, since he seems to be the capable guy.
Okay, so you head out. Stephen's still there, like chatting away to people. He's moved around a bit, but he's mainly seems to be like talking to like the mortals. Like I say, he's trying to like upsell this like the Enigma.
Actually, if I'm going out, I'll do a very quick. I'll look at the ministry members.
Yep.
So I assume Valerie and Stephen actually would be quite involved with the socializing.
Yes, they are. D'Angelo Riddle and Lucius Ash are like a little bit more withdrawn. They mainly seem to be like sticking together, and they're doing a little bit of chat, but only when they're directly approached. They're not sort of like social butterflies like Stephen and Valerie seem to be.
Right. I'll go to them, and I guess I'll explain the situation in vague terms. Like, there's a really messy body in the bathroom that probably needs to be taken care of immediately.
At which point, they don't really like bat an eyelid. Riddle says, "How did the body get there?" Never mind.
So-
Let us sort it out first, and you can explain later.
Yeah.
What do you need from us?
Look, the body has been essentially torn to pieces somehow by like it's gonna need like a full cleanup crew.
Okay. At which point he says, D'Angelo Riddle turns to Lucius and he says, Lucius, would you, where did you say it was again?
The lavatory on the no, see where.
Lucius, would you go and stand outside the door and make sure no one gets in? Tell them it's out of order. At which point Lucius just nods and he like heads over towards the door of the lavatory. Riddle says, I'll go and get some of the security personnel who we can trust. As Valerie said earlier, we did have contingency plans in place in case things got a little out of hand. And he heads off. A few moments later, he comes back and there's like a number of like the security people with him. They've got the sort of black jackets on, the radios, etc. But they're carrying like the sort of like the mop and bucket, like the cleaning gear that the cleaners would use.
Yeah. I look at the cleaning here and I'm like actually thinking, is this enough? This is a lot, but is it enough to...
Did you bring enough bags? Because
you're gonna need one for each organ type.
One of the security people is like pushing, one of those carts and has like the bin bag sort of stretched in the cart, sort of points to the edge of the cart, and you can see there's like a roll of those like polythene like bin bags on it.
Okay, well, this is the messiest way for a body to get there, so
they
I don't know what...
They sort of head in. You see a few of them are a bit like when they see like the sheer scale of the mess. But as D'Angelo's sort of stood there and he's talking to them, he says, we need this cleaned up as quickly, as quietly and as promptly as possible. And you feel like this wave of sort of good feeling wash off him, which you guys, you've been around a bit, you recognise he's using presence. Obviously it doesn't really affect you, he's not really directing it at you, he's directing it at the sort of clean-up crew, and that seems to like bolster them, and they immediately like start getting the bleach out and the mops. The chunks, if I can call them that, are sort of put in the big bag that's attached to the cart. They then get a load of paper towels, like stuff them in more bin bags and put those bin bags on top of the main ones. So like if anyone just cautiously looks in, they just see a load of bin bags. And they're pretty much sort of like, it takes probably a good 15-20 minutes, but they properly like scrub down and like disinfect the floors and sort of mop it all up, etc. And the mops are all like placed in one of those like wheelie buckets, and like a lid's closed on it, so you can't even see that there's loads of like blood on the mops.
Yeah. So who should I give an explanation to?
At which point D'Angelo says, I think it best if you explain it to all of us. I'll go and gather the others. If you just wait here a moment.
Yeah, sure.
And obviously he sends the sort of clean-up crew away as well and gives them some instructions. So a few minutes later, in the sort of newly cleaned and like bleach-smelling latrine, the other members of the ministry are gathered. So Valerie Frost is there, D'Angelo Riddle, Stephen Fields, Lucius Ash. They're all sort of gathered together, and Valerie, sort of like looking a bit more serious now, not an almost sort of light and breezy sort of person, says, D'Angelo tells me there's been an issue that needed a clean-up.
Yeah. I basically explain what just happened, but I give them context, but I just say that Alex is an old enemy of mine, and I don't really explain the relationship there, but I, tell them that he basically did I think he did something to this person, and it was complete.
As you're explaining that, you're telling them what happens. D'Angelo says something in a foreign language, and the rest of the ministry members are like,
yeah, what's that? What?
Valerie says, D'Angelo was just commenting on the messy method by which the unfortunate person met their end. please forgive him for switching to a foreign language. It's English is not his native language. When he gets emotional, and you see D'Angelo like doesn't look emotional. He's just like
He's literally dead.
yeah. So when he gets emotional, he tends to resort to his native tongue.
Alright, stop it, Dan. You're hysterical. Okay, but
With your hysterically raising an eyebrow. Calm down, D'Angelo.
There's a pour water on him.
The only one who looks less emotional than him is like Lucius Ashes, that's still not spoken. He's just like
he like coughs slightly, and everyone's like, "Oh my god!"
As you guys were saying earlier, like between the four sort of Setites, it's like Valerie and Stephen Fields got like all the emotions, and the other two are just like, we are dead inside.
Yeah. So, do you have any idea what was used to do this? Like, is this magic? This is a magic thing? I don't.
Valerie says, I have heard of certain powers of the blood that would enable what you've described. I've not heard them used for the exact method that you're describing, but I have heard of a power of the blood that would be able to accomplish that. Yes, although it's not a particularly common one.
Do you know what it's called?
He says, I believe they used to call it the crafting of the flesh.
Flesh crafting. Is that a? It looks like blood sorcery to me. Is it?
At which point, Lucius very quietly says, "It has some things in common with what you call sorcery, but it is not. It is not true magic. It is a debased and foul power of the blood."
Okay, so is it more like a standard discipline, like protean or potence, or?
Again, Lucy, which, like I said, this is like the most you've ever heard him talk. He says it has certain similarities with protean, that they both deal with the changing of forms. However, I'm not aware of any clan within the Camarilla that possessed this ability. I do not know the details of it, but I've heard rumours and whispers about it.
Interesting.
Okay, so we know that this was that, with a question mark at the end.
Valerie says, it's the only power of the blood I know that would be capable of doing what you've described. I mean, I can't say for certain, but...
Okay, do we know... I'm getting the idea that this... And Seth is entirely... He only has his slacks on now.
Yeah.
His topless. And this is... Okay, so I'm getting the idea that this isn't really a thing that one of our friends from the lobby would be able to just get up and do. So
No.
Seems like a very specific thing, and given that it's a very direct, targeted thing, we're talking about a very specific
Set of skills, yes.
set of skills and an idea at play here. So do we know who could have done this? We have a name, and I'll motion to Adrian. We have a name. Do we have more names?
Which one? Valerie looks at you, Adrian.
I shrug. I don't know. I don't know about anyone else.
This is recklessness of exactly the kind of variety that I have been trying to talk about in the past weeks.
Yeah, if that had happened in the middle of your club, that would have been a massive, massive masquerade violation, and it would have dampened probably the ministry's reputation here.
Valerie nods and then says, "Well, I'm grateful for the two of you ensuring that it was dealt with as privately as it could be. I owe you a favour."
So you can make this go away. I presume you had some fairly capable cleanup crew.
Yes,
So you can take care of that.
We'll
part?
take care of it.
Okay, that is very good. I trust you on that.
Be assured that we are as shocked and horrified that someone would try such a flagrantly bloody and horrible act, as you say, potentially in front of dozens of mortal witnesses. If, as you said, if this had happened out there, we would have had to have dealt with all of the mortals who witnessed it, and that is not a prospect. And Valerie is getting very serious. She sounds like very sharp-edged, not a normal sort of bubbly. So she says, I would not relish the thought of having to do that. I see unnecessary killing as, even if you ignore the moral implications, I see it as wasteful and unnecessary. The clumsy acts of barbarism like this should not be tolerated.
Perhaps we can talk to the director. Call a blood hunt on this individual.
Given that this Adrian is entirely talking sense, this was not a mistake. This was not someone who is fresh, like some of our friends in the lobby. This was a deliberate act of destabilization, of flagrant disregard to everyone's safety, and it was done with a purpose and malicious intent. Whoever did this has clearly resigned from any notion of trying to band together against the enemy, so to speak.
I think you're quite right, says Valerie. This situation needs to be investigated and the individual responsible dealt with accordingly.
Yes, most definitely. I will be probably with Adrian contacting the director immediately. Not to put this on you, because you have your share of the burden here dealing with this.
That's very much appreciated. Thank you.
We can take it to the director, and I hope that we can put the wheels in motion of our little experiment here with the quickness.
Lucius says, one thing that does strike me as slightly odd is that this only happened, from your description, after the young woman encountered Adrian.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know a great deal about this particular power of the blood. Like I say, I've only heard rumours, but it seems to me that causing what you have described normally would be a difficult task, but to be able to time it so it only occurred after the person had met yourselves. After all, you wouldn't want, if the purpose of this, assuming was to send a message or make a threat towards yourselves, you would not want it to happen before the person met you. But it seems to me that it would require an inordinate amount of skill to ensure that the timing of such a thing was right.
Yeah, or maybe they were in this place watching.
That is my concern.
Perhaps. Well, it will be too late by now, but we should see about Wade, was it? The doorman?
Yeah.
We should see about Wade. It's a
Yeah.
long shot, but still.
Also, this person would have been embraced a little over a decade ago. I think it's doubtful that they've acquired complete mastery of this discipline.
At which point, D'Angelo Riddle says, "Well, as Lucius was saying, there's only one group we know of that, if rumor is to be believed, has this ability. Tell me, what do you know about the Sabbat?" And that is where we end the session.
Yeah, smash cut.
Oh boy.
So, thank you very much for playing, guys.
Thanks for running it.
You both get 4 XP.
Oh boy. Oh yeah, and I need to actually spend some XP this time because
Your account is getting full. You can't.
yeah.
He's got more XP than he's got money in his wallet. Okay, so obviously I'm quite happy to chat to you guys for a bit, but thank you very much for playing. I hope you enjoyed the session.
Yep.
Thank you to anyone who's watching this either now or in the future. I'm going to end the stream now, so take care and we'll catch you in the next episode.